Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 32nd Annual Prince William Chamber of Commerce Valor Awards, sponsored today by City Northern Virginia Medical Center. My name is Jim Elliott. I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the board of directors for our Prince William Chamber of Commerce for 2017-2018. I'd like to take a moment to recognize and acknowledge those that keep our community safe: police, fire and rescue, and volunteer fire and rescue. Let's give them all a round of applause for all they do for our community. Now, I'd like to acknowledge all of the VIPs that are here in the room today, and I'll start out with our President and CEO, Miss Debbie Jones. Joining me on the stage, we have Kathy Johnson, President of City of Northern Virginia Medical Center. And we have Marty Noe, representing Chairman Stewart's office. Out in the audience, we have Senator Jeremy McPike. Now, it says Marty's in the audience, but of course, Marty's up on stage. Marty Noe, representing the Coles District. We have John Jenkins in the front from the Neabsco District. Representing Congressman Conley's office, we have Brianna Sewell right in front. Representing Congresswoman Comstock's office, Dave Stegmeyer. From the City of Manassas, we have Councilman Ian Lovejoy. Councilwoman Pam Sebeski. And Councilwoman Cheryl Bass. I also want to take special recognition to our Valor Awards co-chairs this year, and that would be Rebecca Barnes with Prince William Living, and Robert Sowell from Apple Federal Credit Union. This event would not be what it is today without all of their hard work, as well as all of the other committee members. So if you partake in the committee for our Valor Awards, please stand and be recognized. Our event sponsors today are our presenting sponsor, City of Northern Virginia Medical Center. The Patriot sponsor is Amazon Web Services, Enova, Youth for Tomorrow, and our program sponsors are Novec, Northern Virginia Electric Cooperative. Heritage sponsors, Apple Federal Credit Union, and Novant Health UVA Health System. We have our media partner is Prince William Living. We also have What's Up Prince William here. They're covering and filming the event today. Thank you for that. I'm not sure where Steve is, but he's somewhere in the audience. So if you see him filming and you don't want to be on tape, just avoid his camera. Now, we'd also like to recognize our Cornerstone partners and our Keystone partners. Our 2017 and 2018 Keystone and Cornerstone partners, these have chosen to partner with our chamber to showcase their commitment to impacting the community and developing a reputation as your preferred partners in success. Their logos are shown on the scrolling PowerPoint behind me, or up here on stage. Now, our vision partners have each chosen an area of vision that make up the chamber's program of work, because it is an area to which that member is committed. This year's vision partners are Ziders Enterprises, Inc., our quality of life partner, Dominion Energy, our education partner, Transurban, our advocacy partner, Apple Federal Credit Union, our business growth sponsor, I-66 Express Mobility Partners, our economic development partner, City of Northern Virginia Medical Center, our health and community partner. Today we'd like to hear from our education partner and our quality of life partner. At this time, I'd like to invite our education partner, Deborah Tompkins Johnson, Regional Policy Director for Dominion Energy, to say a few words. Deborah?
Good afternoon. It's always an honor to be here at the Prince William Chambers Valor Awards. For Dominion Energy, like many of the other businesses and community members here today, this event, Valor Awards, is very special and important. The recognition of those of you in public safety is important for many reasons, the least of which is you run in, you run towards, you hear that all the time, can never say it too much, when the rest of us run out or run away, and we thank you. In particular for Dominion Energy, we have the opportunity to see you in action sometimes up close. Our crew members often meet you at homes, businesses, when there has been a fire or incident, because you need us to shut off power to a dwelling or to a burning pole or other equipment. That happens not only here in Prince William, of course, and not only in the United States. Recently, Dominion Energy had the distinct honor to send crews to Puerto Rico to work to restore power to homes and businesses there. The long and still continued plight of our citizens in Puerto Rico was close to the hearts of many here. I'm sure you join me in that. I'd like to share a letter from a residents association sent to our chairman and president and CEO, Tom Farrell. Dear sir, for the past month or so, your crews of approximately 80 employees were assigned to work in Puerto Rico as part of the power restoration efforts required after devastating hurricanes Irma and Maria left the island without electricity. This was not an easy task. For the residents on the island, these have been very difficult times. Many are still without power. But we are hopeful that things will eventually get back to normal and that as a result of this, we will be a better and stronger people. I am writing on behalf of the many families who live in the rural areas of Carolina, specifically the sectors of Brazos, Cacao, Cedro, Carrizos, and Santa Cruz. Let me start by saying that Puerto Ricans in general are a warm and welcoming people who try to live by the motto, Mi casa es su casa. We've learned, and many of you knew or grew up with this, my home is your home. When we saw the Dominion trucks arrive with the work crews, we were elated because they offered us a sign of hope. We felt the need to make them feel welcomed and at home, and of course we wanted to express our gratitude. So it was only natural that we invited them into our homes for lunch or coffee. The people opened their doors and hearts to them, and the crews graciously accepted and reciprocated with respect, empathy, and kindness. We shared with them our food, laughter, and hugs, and they, in return, gave us a devotion to duty that went far beyond just installing poles and cables. Please allow us, sir, to say that you have a fine group of employees who represent your company well. We congratulate you. Thank you for helping Puerto Rico get back on its feet, and thank you to your crews for their fine work and for sharing with us some very special moments. May God bless each and every one of you. Respectfully yours, Ido Ramos Cedero, past president of the Residents Association in the Barrio Brazos. So before we could even get approval to travel to and work in Puerto Rico, public safety personnel went ahead of us. So this letter of thanks extends to all of you in public safety and your colleagues who went ahead of us, you and your colleagues who went ahead of us in Puerto Rico for making our way safe, for making our lives more safe and secure, as well as those in Puerto Rico and for the people that you serve here in Prince William and beyond. Thank you for the opportunity to share. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Dorian T. Anderson, Director of Corporate Development for Ziders Enterprises, Inc., the Chamber's Quality of Life Partner.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank all of our dignitaries that are here today, and all the great people that set this event up for us twice. And of course, my heartfelt appreciation goes to the first responders we are recognizing here today. I'm honored to be here from Ziders Enterprises, representing our chairman, Mr. Mike Zeiders, and our CEO and president, Mr. Paul Richardson, and the more than 1,000 employees that make up our organization. We are pleased to support Prince William Chapter as the Quality of Life Vision Partner. When my boss asked me to do this, I was, of course you're going to do it because the boss asked you to, but it was not out of duty because I feel a special attachment to the first responder community. I grew up around fire station number 10, Terre Haute, Indiana. This is back in the 50s and the 60s, 1950s and 60s. My brother, two-time Vietnam veteran Marine, was a fireman and a paramedic in the 70s. My cousin retired as a lieutenant from the fire department in Indiana. Two of my uncles were police officers in Chicago in the 50s and 60s. And later in my life, as a former commanding general of Joint Task Force 6, headquarters at Biggs Army Airfield, Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, I was responsible for coordinating, training, and delivering support to domestic law enforcement agencies throughout the United States. Zeiders Enterprises is a veteran-owned business. We are a government contractor that provides human capital services to the military and veteran community. Our headquarters has been in Prince William County for over 30 years. During this time, our employees have been supporting service members, veterans, and their families worldwide. Our mission is to deliver quality of life services and support that makes a positive difference for individuals, families, organizations, and communities. To accomplish this mission, we focus our program that provide education and counseling in areas that enhance individual and family productivity, strengthen readiness and resilience, and empower people to a better quality of life. Our company has a rich tradition and proud legacy of supporting individuals who help others through commitment, courage, and selfless actions. We witness a similar commitment of service to our communities that mirrors those we are honoring today. We understand that the challenges, concerns, and successes on professional, personal, and family levels are aligned in many ways with the work we do for the military. I'm proud to share that Zeiders is recognized as a military-friendly employer, military spouse-friendly employer, and a military-friendly brand. We like to say we have the passion for the mission and the expertise for the solution. I extend our thanks and appreciation to our superheroes who sacrifice their personal time and safety each day under all conditions and on holidays to make Prince William County a better and safe place to live, work, and visit. Your contributions to the quality of life of our community are beyond measure. I congratulate all with a special recognition for those that support them as well. Again, thank you. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to today's presenting sponsor, Katherine Johnson, President of Centara, Northern Virginia Medical Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. It's an honor to be with you. On behalf of Centara Healthcare, we're honored to once again sponsor the Prince William Chamber of Commerce Valor Awards. Maya Angelou once said, "Courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently." Courage is the cornerstone of this event. The courage of our first responders makes an indelible impact on the community, and for that we owe them a debt of gratitude. We want to thank all public safety professionals, and today we especially extend our appreciation and congratulations to those who distinguish themselves through noble acts. With these awards, we celebrate and honor the countless men and women who serve and protect our community each and every day. It is through their selfless commitment to our community that we enjoy a sense of security, although many of these individuals would just say they're simply doing their jobs. Today provides us the opportunity to honor and recognize dedicated professionals who are our neighbors, our friends, our sons, our daughters, and our honorees. On behalf of the Board of Directors, medical staff, employees, and volunteers at Centaur Northern Virginia Medical Center, thank you all for your dedication and for serving our community so selflessly. Let's give you all a round of applause. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the presentation of colors by the Prince William County Public Safety Honor Guard and our national anthem. Then please remain standing for a prayer. Let's welcome Caleb Green from Legal Shield to the stage to sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Forward.
As we begin today's ceremony, I will invite Chaplain Gary Council to lead us in a prayer.
Please join me in thought as we pray. Gracious Father, we have gathered from across Prince William County to honor those who have given selfless service for their fellow citizens and local communities. Their understanding of what is good, right, and true motivated performing public duties responsibly and courageously, going above and beyond the expected, regardless of personal risk and safety. Yet, they would humbly acknowledge you as the infinite source of those inspiring values that prompted valorous acts of exemplary service. We rightly recognize these few who have benefited so many by their concerned commitment to the well-being of others, their timely intervention in sensitive situations, and correctly applied expertise that saved lives and property. May their service be the models for our youth to follow in these troubled times, and may we rededicate ourselves to emulate the values shared in this afternoon's ceremony throughout all our circles of influence. Though not named here today, we remember those in public service who are answering calls, even now, that require discerning wisdom, decisive action, and appropriate application of their training. Grant them the blessing of your abiding presence during their watch, and return them safely home, we pray. Amen. Amen. Please be seated.
Thank you, Chaplain Council. It's It's now my honor to invite to the stage the chiefs and department representatives of those being awarded today. Chief Lieutenant Colonel Mark Schottenberg, Commanding Officer, Security Battalion, Marine Corps Base, Quantico. Lieutenant Paul Savell, Virginia State Police, standing in for Lieutenant Koschel. Chief Douglas Keene, City of Manassas Police Department. Chief Rob Clemens, City of Manassas Fire and Rescue Department. Chief Barry Bernard, Prince William County Police Department. And Chief Kevin McGee, Prince William County Department of Fire and Rescue. As a nation and a community that believes deeply in the dignity and worth of every life, we have long held ceremonies such as this to express our sincere appreciation for those who devote their lives to public safety. Each and every day, our local superheroes go to work, not knowing what challenges they may face, yet fully committed to answering those challenges squarely and decisively. It's our privilege to recognize you today. You all give your fellow citizens peace of mind, the moral certainty that when the need arises, you will be there to defend the voiceless, seek out the helpless, and run in the direction of danger. This afternoon, we gather in tribute and celebration of over 100 public safety officers who exceeded our expectations. These awards are reserved for men and women who display exceptional courage, extraordinary decisiveness and presence of mind, and unusual swiftness of action, disregarding their own safety in order to protect others in action above and beyond the call of duty. Due to our event being rescheduled because of the snow, Leon Harris was unable to join us today, but we are pleased and grateful to have Julie Donaldson, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports, joining us today to read the citations honoring these individuals. NBC Sports Washington anchor and reporter Julie Donaldson hosts the network's Washington Wizards pregame, halftime, and postgame shows, Wizards Game Time, Halftime Live, and Wizards Extra, along with delivering the latest Wizards commentary after each game as a part of the Wizards Extra podcast. Julie has also worked on the 4 past Olympic Games for NBC Sports, and on occasion can be seen nationally doing the weekend sports updates on NBC. Please join me in welcoming Julie Donaldson.
Thank you so much for having me. I know you're all anticipating Leon Harris, so I know I have big shoes to fill, but if he were to fit my heels, we'd really have troubles tonight because look at these, all right? I think I'll hopefully be able to handle the job. I'm so honored to be here today, even though it was last minute. The second that I was asked to do this by one of my friends, Kevin Schaefer, out there is going to be honored tonight. I said yes. And one of the quickest reasons that I was quick to respond, even though technically it was my day off, my mother is in town, and I had to load her off to my sister for a few hours, is because when I was graduating 6th grade, about to have a big old party to celebrate moving on to middle school, there happened to be a house fire in the middle of the night. A light on a couch that we thought we threw a bucket of water on would be fine. We went back to sleep, and I'm sure as many as you know, that meant it just smoldered and it relit in the middle of the morning. Because of the flames, we had gone to sleep in another room. And the only time I saw my father cry during this entire event is when the police officers and the firefighters went to him and said, "Do you realize that roof collapsed within 3 minutes of your daughters getting out?" And when you realize the danger and the risk that you come to and you sacrifice for, it's so people like me can be here today. So yes, I will always jump in, no matter how late the opportunity, to be able to be out here today, because I'm alive because of the bravery of the ladies and the gentlemen that came to fight the house fire. I've also lived through car fire. I haven't lived through fire in this building, but I have a feeling we are safe and protected should that happen. So let's pray that I don't bring any of that bad luck with me. So there's a lot of awards and honors to get to tonight, and I'm going to ask you to come up to the stage. If I say your name incorrectly, please have a little bit of a pass on me. I haven't had as much time with the scripts or the names, and I'm used to saying Czech names. I'm used to saying hockey names. I'm used to saying names Marcin Gortat or Bradley Beal. And if I mess your name up, then it should be a simple last name like Donaldson. Let's honor your work tonight, your bravery tonight. How much we depend upon and appreciate the bravery of our community's public safety officials. Their tales of valor remind us that we have much to be thankful for. While the award recipients begin to come forward, I would like to point out that the criteria for these awards are in front of your program book. We will ask the recipients to come forward as the names are read and their chief of department representatives to stand and present them with their award. In addition to their awards, the recipients will be receiving a letter of congratulations from Congressman Gerald Connolly and Congresswoman Barbara Comstock. We also ask our recipients to remain in place for a moment after receiving their award while photos are taken. You're going to want to make sure you take those home with you, right? Additional photos will be taken after the program has been completed, because we know once you take a picture and you post it on social media, nothing's official. So that makes it official. We now want to get to our presentation of awards. Lieutenant Colonel Schnockenberg, would you please come forward to present this afternoon's first award? Would you like to read off all the names here to come up? And then I'll go into the story. How's that? That sounds like a fair exchange.
Okay, this award is from the Provost Marshal's Office, Marine Corps Base Quantico. First name, Mrs. Estrella Carpenter, Ms. Leanne Best, Agent Ryan Martin, Agent Sean Foley, Warrant Officer Nicholas Van Effen, Agent Cody Smith, Agent Sean Lyon, Agent Micah Hammonds, Gunnery Sergeant Paul Lawless, Agent Christopher Bates, Agent Andrew Timms. And forgive me, ladies and gentlemen, I did bring just the two guys that are in charge. So with that, I'll hand it back over.
I'm like, wait a second, I'm not the best at math, but I do typically work with numbers. And what you read out, this isn't 2? Okay. You see why I put him to work. So on March 4th, 2017, a report for the investigative source, the War Horse, revealed over 30,000 service members from all branches were sharing non-consensual, sexually explicit photographs of male and female service members on the Facebook page, Marines United. The Naval Criminal Investigative Service conducted an investigation to identify and locate individuals using the Marine United webpage. General Robert B. Neller initiated an investigation subsequently identified as Operation Purple Harbor. CID provided personnel to Headquarters Marine Corps to begin looking through the countless pornographic images, degrading comments, and sexual videos to identify victims and subjects of this revenge porn. Through their tenacity and attention to detail, the CID agents identified or assisted in the identification over 100 victims. The Naval Criminal Investigation Service and Criminal Investigation Division offices worldwide interviewed each victim within hours of identification. CID agents then used various criminal databases, public sources, and government websites to fully identify, locate, and interrogate those responsible for posting the explicit photographs online. During the weeks and months to follow, CID, PMO, Security Battalion, MCINCR, MCB Quantico, VA was responsible for the accurate and timely reporting of all 110 investigations worldwide. CID continued to receive notifications from Marine Corps Cyberspace Operations Group, who were identifying computers within the Marine Corps network, which were used to access and view sexually explicit images, information. Identified computers were seized as evidence and forensically examined. The CID agents were then responsible for reviewing over 5 bits of information, which included over 50,000 images, to determine the extent of the sexually explicit material and the user who was responsible. Upon identifying and locating the individuals, the CID agents again coordinated with various law enforcement agencies and ensured all subjects were interviewed. Through the collection of evidence, interviews of witnesses, interrogations of subjects, and coordination with various law enforcement agencies, both federal and civilian, the Marines and civilians were able to assist victims in obtaining justice for their images being exposed, and subsequently change the way the Marine Corps views social media misconduct. Their efforts are the definition of teamwork in the successful closing of this major case, and it is for that reason that we present this award. Agent Logan McKern, the Investigative Merit Award. One way to start this evening with the Investigative Merit Award. Thank you very much for your work. We now would like to have Lieutenant Paul Saville please step forward to present an award to your department. From the Virginia State Police, Trooper 2, Brandon D. West. Since I had him read off 10 names. No, we'll just do one? Okay. West. There we go. It only gets more difficult from here. Trooper West was stationary on Interstate 95 northbound at the, here you go, how do you say this bridge? Occoquan Bridge. There we go. When he saw a Dodge pickup with a large trailer pulled to the right shoulder on the bridge, Trooper West proceeded to the location. Fairfax Communications sent out a call for a safety service to respond, but advised Trooper that a request for rescue had been dispatched. Trooper West arrived on scene and was advised by a passenger of the pickup that the driver was injured. Trooper West went to the pickup and found the driver pale and in possible shock, seeing a large amount of blood on the floorboard. Trooper West looked for the driver's injury and found that the pickup's drive shaft had struck his lower leg. The broken drive shaft had come through the floor of the pickup and struck the driver's leg. Much of the lower leg was missing. Trooper West applied a tourniquet to the driver's leg and slowed the blood loss, but it would not stay in place. Trooper West held the tourniquet in place until rescue arrived and applied a second tourniquet. The driver was flown from the scene in good condition, thanks to Trooper West's rescue efforts. For quick thinking and persistence, we present Trooper Brandon D. West of the Virginia State Police with the Bronze Medal for Valor. Chief Keene, please come forward to present the awards for your department. From the Manassas City Police Department, Officer Nicole Arrington. On October 6, 2017, Officer Arrington was patrolling the overflow lot of the Novant Health UVA Health System Prince William Medical Center. An unknown woman hysterically approached her cruiser, screaming, "He's not breathing." The woman was unable to explain where the man was located and gestured toward to the point where the parking lot meets Rolling Road. Officer Arrington saw two females running in circles around the vehicle and into the roadway. She approached the females and spotted a man lying on the ground. She quickly checked to see if he had a pulse. She determined he did not. and saw that he was blue and purple with no signs of breath. Officer Arrington called rescue immediately. Officer Arrington then began CPR. She conducted 6 full rounds of CPR until medic units arrived on scene and were able to assume responsibility for the man who had overdosed on heroin. He was administered Narcan and transported to the nearby hospital where he was finally revived. Officer Arrington's actions were instrumental in saving the life of this man. For her swift life-saving actions, we present Officer Nicole Arrington with the Merit Award for Valor. From the Manassas City Police Department, Communications Supervisor Jeremy Bergeron. On August 29, 2017, PSC Supervisor Jeremy Bergeron was headed home after his shift. Near the intersection of Noakesville and Linton Hall Roads, he heard what he thought was a crash to his left and saw 2 vehicles in the entrance of the Cube Smart facility. Jeremy made a U-turn to check on the injuries. Upon U-turning his car, he heard a pop, and then he saw a vehicle leaving northbound with 2 people running after it. Jeremy started to follow the fleeing vehicle, but just as he passed the Cube Smart, he heard someone screaming for help. He turned around again and went back to the business where he found a victim and his brother. The brother was yelling wildly. The victim had been shot once in the back. Jeremy called the Prince William County Communications Center to report the incident, and Prince William County units responded. After the fact, Jeremy realized the noises that he heard were gunshots, and he had seen a robbery in progress. He's being commended for outstanding performance of duty and quick response to a potentially dangerous situation. We present Communications Supervisor Jeremy Bergeron with the Merit Award for Valor. From the Manassas City Police Department, Officer Luis Armas. So far, I'm okay on the names. Let's see how that keeps going. Whoever I do get wrong first, feel free to come and just, clock me with your award. I have witnesses. On July 22nd, 2017, police and rescue personnel were dispatched to a residence on McKenzie Circle where a man was unconscious. Officer Armas, who had started his shift early to assist evening units with coverage, was the first responder to arrive on the scene. Upon his arrival, Officer Armas quickly determined that the victim was not breathing. He began performing CPR, continuing unassisted until medical personnel were able to arrive on the scene. The man was transported to Novant Health UVA Health System at Prince William Medical Center by rescue personnel. He was stable and he was breathing with a high likelihood of survival. It is believed Officer Armas was instrumental in saving the man's life. For his heroic life-saving attempt, we present Officer Luis Armas with the Merit Award of Valor. From the Manassas City Police Department, Officer John Castelline, Officer Jeff Schubert, K-9 Officer Rex, Detective Andrew Spites, Sergeant Chris Shields. On the evening of April 1st, 2016, Manassas City police officers were dispatched to the scene of a shooting. Witnesses reported that a vehicle had exchanged several rounds of gunfire with a group at a nearby park. The vehicle and the group had fled the scene before officers had arrived. The responding officers found that uninvolved vehicles and occupied residents had been struck by stray gunfire. Officer Castelline spoke with several witnesses who were able to provide a description of a suspect from the vehicle and a basic description of the vehicle involved. One witness provided a video of the suspect holding a firearm inside a vehicle. The make or the model could not be determined at the time. The identified suspect in the video was wanted at the time and involved in multiple other recent shootings in the same community. The suspect was an admitted gang member and had told others that he intended to shoot police officers when they attempted to arrest him. Sergeant Shields began collecting real-time location information from the suspect's cell phone. Meanwhile, a relative of the suspect was located at Novant Health UVA Health System Prince William Medical Center, suffering from a gunshot wound. Detective Spike spoke with a relative who admitted being in the area during the shooting but denied being directly involved. The relative also admitted to driving to his home after the shooting, which shared with the suspect, information which led to the seizure of the relative's vehicle as evidence. As officers continued investigating the incident, Sergeant Shields and Detective Spikes coordinated a search, which continued into the evening with real-time information providing a general area for where the suspect might be. Spikes and Shields were patrolling an apartment complex, the last known location of the suspect, when they observed the suspect walking with other individuals along the unlit sidewalk. Sergeant Shields and Detective Spikes challenged the two, who immediately fled to an unlit parking lot. Both officers chased them through the parked vehicles and into a nearby wooded area. They lost sight of the suspect in the wooded area, and a perimeter was established. Sergeant Shields called for helicopter support from Fairfax Police, and Officer Schubert, K-9 Rex, and other MCPD officers responded to help Sergeant Shields and Detective Spikes search the wooded area for the suspect. As the search continued, the individual seen with the suspect was found attempting to enter a garage in a nearby condominium. He confirmed that he and the suspect had fled when they saw officers and that the suspect was still armed. Officer Schubert, Detective Spikes, and Sergeant Shields continued searching for the suspect with assistance from the Fairfax Police helicopter. The suspect, who had hidden in a small ditch under dense vegetation, was found to be in possession of 2 loaded firearms with ammunition chambered for fire. He expressed regret for not taking the opportunity to kill the searching officers before being captured. The next day, MCPD officers executed a search warrant on the vehicle seized the previous evening and on the residence to which the suspect's relatives had returned immediately after the shooting. This search resulted in the recovery of several items of evidence, including a bullet which had become lodged inside the vehicle. Shields obtained a confession from the suspect's relative. He was the driver during the shooting. The video recovered during initial response was taken inside the vehicle just prior to the shooting, and the suspect had fired his weapon from the vehicle at the group standing in the park. As the investigation continued into 2017, the suspect eventually admitted to Officer Castelline that he was involved in the shooting, but said he was acting in self-defense. He also taunted officers that he would not receive a significant sentence and bragged that he would be out committing even more violent acts soon. Over the next year, Detective Spikes worked to build a case against all those involved because of his diligence, and in the face of overwhelming evidence collected by the officers involved, the suspect eventually pled guilty to several felony offenses. The suspect was responsible for causing a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety as the offender in several violent incidents. Detective Spikes was determined to make sure the community felt safe and that the suspect and other gang members knew they would be held accountable to their actions. Detective Spikes and Sergeant Shields coordinated with community leaders to have a large group of residents appear for the sentencings of the offender in April 2017. The presence and testimony of community residents was influential in the significant sentence delivered in the case. For bravery and heroism demonstrated in a cooperative fashion, we present Officer John Castelline, Officer Jeff Schubert, K-9 Officer Rex, Detective Andrew Spice, and Sergeant Chris Shields with the Valorous Unit Award. From the Manassas City Police Department, Master Detective A. Giovanni Barahona. On September 25th, 2015, units responded to Stevens Court, where a 24-year-old man had been shot while driving, causing him to collide with several parked cars. The victim's injuries were life-threatening, and he was flown to a nearby trauma center where emergency surgery was performed. He ended up paralyzed from his chest down. Senior Detective Barahona was called to the shooting location, where he interviewed acquaintances of the victim and several people in the area. There were no eyewitnesses. SDET Barahona then went to the trauma center where the victim was being treated and attempted to interview him, but he was unable to communicate for several days because of his injuries. Over the next few weeks, Barahona visited the victim on a regular basis. He interviewed dozens of the victim's family members, friends, and potential witnesses, and developed a biography of the victim. Detective Barahona determined the persons of interest were members of a criminal street gang involved in the widespread sale of illegal narcotics. He then narrowed the persons of interest down to 4 suspects and worked diligently to establish the probable cause needed to obtain charges. Eventually, arrest warrants were obtained, and Barahona worked tirelessly over the course of months to locate the suspects. SDET Barahona worked closely with U.S. Marshals Service and coordinated efforts with other jurisdictions in Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. SDET Barahona interviewed hundreds of people and documented the case with over 70 detailed supplemental reports. All 4 suspects were apprehended and charged with aggravated malicious wounding, use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, and shooting into a vehicle. Although the shooting occurred in September 2015, the investigation continued well into 2016 and went to court in 2017. Each suspect was found guilty of charges ranging from conspiracy to unlawfully wounding to attempted murder. For persistence in solving a difficult case, we would like to present Master Detective A. Giovanni Barahona with the Hillary Robinette Award. Manassas City Police Department, Sergeant Jake Marks, Officer Cullen Heinke, Officer Chris Sutton, Officer John Castelline. On May 19, 2017, Manassas City police officers were dispatched to the area of Dumfries Road and Hastings Drive for a reported shooting. A man armed with a machete was firing a gun at vehicles in the roadway. One caller reported that the suspect had shot at them and was last seen driving a black SUV on Grant Avenue. Officer Castelline spotted the suspect vehicle shortly after and coordinated with other officers to stop the suspect vehicle, but the driver fled towards Prince William Parkway. Officer Castelline was joined in the pursuit by Officer Sutton, Officer Heinke, Sergeant Marks, and other Manassas City police officers. Officer Heinke took over radio communications as the suspect continued to flee south on Dumfries Road at speeds of more than 100 miles per hour. Driving recklessly, ignoring traffic signals, and nearly causing a collision, two other individuals in the vehicle appeared to be physically fighting with each other. Despite the stressful situation, Officer Heinke calmly provided radio updates. The pursuit continued into George Helwig Memorial Park, where the suspect began driving recklessly through fields and parking lots, striking several park structures. At one point, the suspect circled around a baseball field where he was then facing Officer Heinke and other pursuing officers. The suspect intentionally rammed Officer Heinke's cruiser, ripping away the front bumper. He then continued to flee through the parking lot. Despite being struck, Officer Heinke continued providing critical information to the other officers involved. Moments after striking Officer Heinke, the driver exited his still-moving vehicle and began running back towards the pursuing officers. The other occupant, a juvenile, was still trapped in the moving vehicle. The suspect produced a gun and took a position of cover behind a cement post. The suspect ignored Officer Castellan's orders to drop his weapon and pointed a gun at other officers that were exiting their vehicles. Officer Castellan and Officer Sutton fired at the suspect, hitting him several times. The suspect fell, but the gun was still within his reach. The suspect began rolling toward the gun and continued to ignore commands to stop. The officers quickly lost sight of the gun behind the suspect. Officer Sutton and Sergeant Marks organized a group of officers to approach the suspect. Using shields, Officer Sutton and Sergeant Marks moved the group of officers towards the suspect while Officer Castellan continued to issue him commands. Sutton and Marks made contact with the suspect, removed the gun so that the suspect could be safely restrained by other officers. Sergeant Marks and Officer Sutton applied first aid to the suspect, holding pressure to his wounds and applying a tourniquet. The other officers rescued the juvenile from the suspect's vehicle. It was later learned that the calls reporting a shooting were false, made by the suspect in an apparent suicide attempt. His actions threatened the lives of the community, the juvenile trapped with the suspect, and all of the officers involved. For their heroic actions in the face of great personal danger, we are proud to present Sergeant Jake Marks, Officer Colin Heinke, Officer Chris Sutton, and Officer John Castellan with the Silver Medal for Valor. From the Manassas City Police Department, Officer Steve Schillenberg. You thought you were done. You have more words to give out. You can't leave me up here alone. From July 29th to the 31st of 2017, members of the M2 squad visited Virginia Beach for a weekend vacation. On July 30th, they were enjoying the beach. While the weather was clear and warm, there was significant wind, which caused rough water conditions. While swimming, two young men began crying out for help, struggling in the rough water. They were being pulled away from the shore in a rip current. Disregarding his own safety and facing the possibility of drowning, Officer Schillenberg swam out to the two of the boys, rescuing them and bringing them to safety of the shore before any on-duty lifeguard could take action. The juveniles were turned over to lifeguards for medical assessment but were ultimately not injured and, most importantly, alive. For his heroic life-saving rescue, we would like to present Officer Steve Schillenberg with the Silver Medal for Valor. If you're taking a vacation, you want to take this guy with you. Chief Clemens, I believe now you're dismissed. Chief Clemens, you are up. Would you please come forward to present the awards for your department? From the City of Manassas Department of Fire and Rescue, would you like to come over and say all these names? Just give me a 20-second break.
Engine 501, Chief Gary Orndorff. Firefighter EMT Luis Salazar. Firefighter EMT Ian Burke. Medic 501D, Firefighter Medic Eva Rose. Firefighter Medic Charles Yancey. Ambulance 501C, Chief Nancy Orndorff. EMTB Benjamin Simmons, and EMT Joey Sabeski. Tower 501 Master Technician Jameson Jewett, Firefighter Medic Matthew Hepner, Master Technician Matthew Eichhorst, and Battalion Chief 582, Captain Andrew Carver.
Thank you very much. Glad to have you all on stage with us here. Now on April 17th, 2017, personnel was dispatched for an ALS assault with one shooting victim. Police had officers in the area for reports of shots fired and had found one victim with gunshot wounds to the chest. Units reported to the parking lot where the victim was found. They were told they'd been given a police escort to the patient location. Upon arrival at the scene, the units found that police had set up a perimeter of officers around the patient and were crouched behind ballistic shields. All fire and EMS personnel took position behind the shields and began treating the patient using tactical emergency casualty care procedures. The patient was found to have 9 gunshot wounds and 3 to 4 stab wounds. Personnel rapidly moved the patient to the medic unit. The patient also required extensive bleeding control. Because of the nature of the injuries and the declining health of the patient, rapid sequence incubation was performed. This is an advanced level of care not performed by all providers in the region, especially in the dangerous warm zone of an active crime scene. The patient's condition deteriorated and CPR was initiated. The flight crew rode with the medics to assist the patient care en route to the Novant Health UVA Health System Prince William Medical Center. And upon arrival, the emergency department team, flight crew, and fire EMS worked together to save the patient's life. Air Care was enabled to transport the patient to Fairfax Hospital. Sadly, though, the patient succumbed to their injuries. However, the teamwork shown between all providers from the start of this call to the last moments was nothing short of valorous. For their bravery, heroism, and risk of great personal injury, this extraordinary group of men and women performed above and beyond the call of duty, and we would like to present them with the Valorous Unit Awards.
Master Technician Kevin Schaefer, Firefighter EMT Frank Flanagan, Firefighter EMT William LeDrew, and Firefighter Medic John Gibney.
If you have an issue of my filling in for Leon, Kevin's the gentleman to blame. Feed all your complaints on my job tonight to him, please. On June 28th, I am glad to be here though, 2017, units were dispatched to assist a pedestrian struck by a train near the Manassas Park-Fairfax County line. Tower 501 Officer Schaefer utilized several resources based upon the dispatch location to find a good access point to the patient. The crew grabbed their EMS equipment and any other equipment they thought they would need and started walking to the incident scene. During the hike to the scene, the tower crew was unable to coordinate with Fairfax 1 on the exact location of the patient. The crew had to walk over half a mile in extremely high temperatures, each carrying over 50 pounds of equipment. At one point, they had to cross a railroad bridge that was not designated for pedestrian crossings and had large gaps between the railroad ties that led to a 40-foot drop. After over 20 minutes of walking, the crew found the patient with VREs with the Virginia Railway Express staff who were performing CPR on the victim. Once the tower crew reached the patient, they immediately took over CPR and other medical treatments. while VRE staff comforted family members and bystanders witnessing the traumatic event. The crew operated for a long period of time in high temperatures without relief crews. Since the incident took place at a remote location, it was difficult to get an immediate address, complicating coordination between the tower crew and Fairfax 1, who worked to get additional crews to the scene. They did succeed, and the tower crew was instrumental in the overall command and coordination of the incident. For their life-saving actions under extreme conditions, we would like to present Master Technician Kevin Schaefer, Firefighter EMT Frank Flanagan, Firefighter EMT William LeDrew, Firefighter Medic John R. Gibney with the Valorous Unit Award. Chief Bernard, would you please step forward to present the awards for your department? From the Prince William County Police Department, Officer Charles Dooley. On November 9th, 2017, Officer Dooley responded to an address on Carmadon Place for a domestic with weapons call. Officer Dooley spoke with a distraught mother who advised her 23-year-old son was in the upstairs dining room holding a large kitchen knife to his throat. Officer Dooley made contact with the son, who was sitting at the dining room table with a large kitchen knife pressed firmly against his throat. The man was in distress, and Officer Dooley began to build a rapport with him. Dooley utilized his crisis intervention training so that the son would reveal why he was in distress. The son suffers from alcoholism and was not in the correct state of mind when he came home that evening. After an argument with his mother, he resorted to contemplating suicide as so to not be a burden. Officer Dooley consoled him, all the while continuing to direct him to drop the knife. Officer Dooley promised the son he would be with him throughout the process of obtaining a mental health evaluation. Officer Dooley showed compassion for the well-being of the son as he dropped the knife on the table. Officer Dooley then successfully removed not only the knife the son had been holding to his throat, but also another that was concealed on his lap. Officer Dooley ensured that the son did not have any other weapons on him and gave him a knife. It seemed fitting. For his compassion and concern and the well-being of people in his community, we would like to present the Merit Award for Valor to Officer Charles Dooley. I have to admit, when I was reading that story, it's sometimes the simplest things that I think sometimes we forget in life people just need and want. And sometimes a simple hug can make all the difference in the world. From Prince William County Police Department, Officer David Chung and Officer Richard Alicia. All right, Alicia. On December 7th, 2017, Officer David Chung and Officer Richard Alicia responded to an attempted suicide. The victim had sent her husband a text message saying goodbye. Her husband was away in Texas, so he contacted her parents in Roanoke. They were concerned for her safety because she had been upset for the past few days and had spoken of suicide recently. Concerned for her safety, they contacted the Prince William County Police Department. When the officers arrived at the house, the front door was locked. When they knocked on the door, they received no answer. Officer Chung located a neighbor who was able to get the code to unlock the door. Once inside, the officers searched the residence for the victim. She was lying on her back in the closet of the master bedroom, unconscious, with her hands handcuffed behind her back and a cord around her neck. Officer Alisea pulled the victim from the closet while Officer Chung called for fire and rescue. Chung then handed Alisea his trauma shears so he could cut the cord from her neck. With the cord removed, they checked her vitals. She was not breathing and had a very faint pulse. Officer Chung started chest compressions while Officer Alisea delivered rescue breaths. As the officers were starting their third repetition of CPR, the victim regained consciousness. They helped her to a seated position and watched her until rescue units arrived, remaining calm throughout. For their ingenuity and swift life-saving actions, we would like to present Officer David Chung and Officer Richard Alisea the Merit Award for Valor. Just because I made everybody else read names, this is your turn now. Anytime I see more than one or two, I hand it over.
Lieutenant Drew Hunter, First Sergeant Dan Crawford, Sergeant David Bliss, Sergeant Dennis Jensen, Sergeant Sean Shelton, Officer Adam Beard, Officer Sean Barrett, Officer Jonathan Harris, Officer Joshua Myers, Officer Andrew Russ, Officer Brian Kimball, Officer Malcolm Gatling, Officer Michael Shoka.
Believe it or not, I actually like to share the microphone. Usually people in my position just want it all to themselves. I had good parents and two sisters. They made me share. First Sergeant Dan Crawford and Officer Gatling were first to respond to a call regarding a suspect walking around a parking lot with a knife. Upon arrival, they found a truck with a man sitting in the front driver's seat, holding a 6-inch hunting knife. The man's feet were covered in abrasions and lesions, and the car was completely covered in trash from floor to ceiling. The area around the gas and brake pedals could not be seen through the pile of cigarette butts on the floor. The officers made contact at the driver's side window, but the suspect refused to answer any questions outside the occasional shouting of profanities. Officers obtained the VIN number from the dash, which helped them identify the driver. A query showed a missing persons report from 2005. The man was no longer missing, but the report revealed that he had a chemical imbalance. The Community Service Board was contacted. CSB advised officers on the scene to obtain an ECO from the magistrate. While waiting for the paperwork to arrive, Lieutenant Hunter and First Sergeant Crawford began pulling different resources to the scene to include K-9, a less lethal operator, taser operator, a CIT officer negotiator, and EMS. Then First Sergeant Crawford contacted Sergeant Shelton, who responded with Officer Beard to attempt negotiations along with Sergeant Jensen. When Sergeant Jensen began to attempt negotiations, the suspect swung the knife at the window and yelled profanities. Sergeant Shelton assumed negotiations, and after a few hours of trying, advised he was getting nowhere with communication because the door and window were closed, creating a barrier, both physical and psychological. The decision was made by Lieutenant Hunter and First Sergeant Crawford to utilize a shield and Slim Jim to open the passenger door. Officer Gatling approached the armed suspect from the passenger side and was able to open the door. The suspect became more agitated. He stabbed the ceiling and passenger seat with the knife, all while yelling for the officers to go away. He found a baseball bat in the rubble and slammed it against the passenger door frame. Hunter and Crawford tried using a fogger pepper spray to bring the incident to a successful and peaceful conclusion. Negotiations were attempted again, and the spray took effect. The suspect suddenly jumped up and out of the passenger side door with the knife in one hand, the baseball bat in the other. He turned towards the officers and began swinging the knife as he advanced with several feet of them. The suspect was struck twice with the taser, but it had no effect. Tasers were fired again, but did not stop the man from advancing. Officer Kimball, who was operating the less lethal rifle, fired 2 consecutive rounds at the suspect once he saw the taser's ineffectiveness and the suspect still advancing with both weapons in hand. Officer Kimball fired a 3rd round as the suspect continued attempting advancements toward officers. The man was finally brought down with the least amount of force possible. Officer Miles and Shaka were able to handcuff him without further incident. Because of the effective teamwork of everyone involved, no officers received any injuries, and the suspect suffered only minor injuries from the taser probes and the less lethal projectiles. For their teamwork and bravery in the face of personal risk, we would like to present Squad F East, Squad F Central, Squad C East, Squad C West, and K-9 Unit. The Valor Award. From the Prince William County Police Department, Detective Anthony E. Mellis, Officer Taylor Mallory. On August 22nd, 2017, Officer Taylor Mallory responded to a child abuse neglect call for service in Nokesville. Upon his arrival, he saw a 10-year-old child wearing a dirty, oversized white t-shirt and black shorts with holes in them. The child had numerous scars on his head and cuts and bruises all over his body. He had knocked on the front door of the witness and asked for food. The caller and witness provided the child with food and were able to determine his name. The child told the caller and the witness that he had walked from Fredericksburg, Virginia, and planned to continue walking to New Jersey. He said he had been staying at random houses during his travel and had been on his own for the past year. The child claimed his parents passed away approximately 3 years ago. Since the child's story was far-fetched and his injuries extensive, Officer Mallow suspected the child was the victim of child abuse and neglect, but was reluctant to disclose information. The child was evaluated and cleared by EMS staff on scene and then transported to the Western District Station to meet with the Special Victims Bureau Detective Anthony Mellis, with SVB responded and assumed the investigation. Mellis met with the child and conducted a forensic interview. The boy provided Detective Mellis the same story he had provided to Officer Malloy. While they were talking, Detective Mellis observed multiple old scars, new injuries, and injuries in the process of healing over his body. Detective Mellis asked the child how he had received the injuries to his body, and he justified them by saying they were bug bites, and he had fallen several days prior while walking on his way to New Jersey. Detective Mellis believed the child had made up the story and continued to build a rapport with him to gain his trust and to get him to disclose possible abuse and neglect. Child Protective Services worker Jennifer Dewar arrived at the Western District Station for briefing. Detective Mellis and Mrs. Dewar conducted computerized searches to positively identify the child, his parents, and his address. Detective Mellis located a 2015 case from Fredericksburg in which the child was listed as a victim of neglect. The child had been left home alone, and his stepfather had subsequently been charged with a criminal offense. Detective Mellis was able to identify the child, his mother, and stepfather. He made contact with them and had them come in for an interview. Mrs. Dewar's search of CPS records revealed a case history involving the child and his home address in Nokesville. Mrs. Dewar interviewed the child, who eventually disclosed that his stepfather was responsible for his injuries, detailing numerous occasions of physical abuse and injuries for which he had never been taken to the hospital for treatment. The child was afraid to disclose the abuse earlier in the interview because he feared further punishment as a form of retaliation by his parents. Detective Mellis and Mrs. Dewar located and interviewed several other tenants that lived at the address along with the child, and they all corroborated the abuse had suffered. Detective Mellis interviewed the child's mother, who confessed to various forms of child abuse, as well as corroborated several forms of abuse by the stepfather. Detective Mellis then conducted an interview with the child's stepfather. The child's stepfather also confessed to the abuse inflicted upon his stepson. Mellis served a search warrant on the residence and recovered various items of evidence corroborating the child's version of the abuse that took place. A physician at Inova Fairfax Hospital examined the child's injuries and determined that the injuries sustained were the result of abuse at the hand of his stepfather and mother. After consulting with Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Regan Klein, both the child's mother and stepfather were arrested for felony child neglect. For their determination in seeking the truth and solving a difficult case, we would like to present Detective Anthony E. Mellis and Officer Taylor Mallow with the Hillary Robinette Award. From the Prince William County Police Department, Detective Stephanie Brown, Officer Darian Kupka, Detective Robert Casper, Detective Gina Pinedo, Crime Analyst Megan O'Neill, Detective Michelle McAllister, Detective Maria Armstrong. On January 12, 2017, homicide detectives from the Violent Crimes Bureau responded to a call about a body that had been found. The body was located along the shoreline of the Potomac River near Thames River Shore Restaurant. Detectives eventually identified the victim's father and determined his death to be a homicide. The victim's father had reported him missing 6 days prior. He told police that he had last spoken with his son on New Year's Eve. The investigation directed detectives to believe that the murder was committed by individuals affiliated with the notoriously violent MS-13 criminal street gang. The investigation proved to be extremely challenging from the beginning due to unfamiliarity with the organization, structure, and comprehension of the gang subculture by the police. Nevertheless, through countless hours of interviews, Spanish translations, and developing intelligence on the fundamental workings of MS-13, detectives overcame these obstacles, and ultimately several suspects were arrested across multiple states. On August 22nd, 2017, detectives from the Fairfax County Homicide Unit contacted Prince William County Homicide detectives to advise them of an ongoing investigation into a missing person case. The victim was last seen by his family on August 3rd, 2017. They also disclosed that the victim was murdered and his body was buried in a shallow grave in a wooded area of Nokesville. An extensive search of the region was conducted in a shallow grave with the body believing to be that of the victim was located, another victim of the MS-13 criminal street gang. 15 gang members across multiple states were arrested for these murders. The results of the investigations have served as the foundation and blueprint for other jurisdictions in the region to follow. For solving a particularly challenging case through collaborative efforts across multiple jurisdictions, resulting in the development of new guidelines to track and arrest gang members, we would like to present Detective Stephanie Brown, Detective Darian Kupka, Detective Gina Pinedo, Detective Robert Casper, and Crime Analyst Megan O'Neill with the Hillary Robinette Award. want to trade you my shoes for your vest. She's like, you can have it. Take those too. From the Prince William County Police Department, Officer Adam Gardnier, Officer Stacy Jalave, Officer Danielle Ruggiero, Officer Nate Rodak, Officer Melissa Quinsonberry, Officer Alex Eguino, Officer Nick Colella. How many of those names did I get right? One. I really don't want to do any injustice in reading your story either. Here we go. On January 10, 2017, officers responded to a suicide in progress call. Once on the scene, they spoke to someone who was unable to contact the victim. She was worried the victim was going to harm herself because of statements made earlier that morning. Officers continued to interview the woman and gathered information to confirm the victim was inside the residence. After all attempts to contact the victim failed, officers were able to make entry through the rear sliding door. The victim was in her bathroom, unconscious, and had harmed herself. Officers began first aid and applied their issued tourniquets to the victim's arms. Her injuries were so extensive, a tourniquet was needed as well. The victim was transported to Centara Northern Virginia Medical Center by EMS. Officers went with her to the hospital with the victim, while the hospital officers applied a fourth tourniquet at the request of the ER staff as they worked to save the victim's life. A month after recovering from her injuries, the victim came to Central District's A Squad roll call to express her gratitude and express her feeling that she has a new lease on life. The victim was extremely grateful for the efforts of the officers in saving her life. The officers involved all received Officer of the Month for January 2017. For their heroic life-saving actions, we would like to present these officers with the Bronze Medal for Valor. From the Prince William County Police Department, Officer Nathaniel Leeser. On July 28, 2017, Officer Nathaniel Leeser was off duty, driving to a scuba diving certification in North Carolina and State Road 2104, when he saw a motorcycle crash into a vehicle in Thomasville, North Carolina. Officer Leeser stopped immediately. The motorcycle operator was severely injured with a compound leg fracture and was losing a large amount of blood. Officer Leeser retrieved his tourniquet from his gear bag and, utilizing his tactical emergency casualty care skills, applied the tourniquet, minimizing blood loss. The driver of the motorcycle suffered a compound fracture to his leg and the bone was protruding from the skin. Officer Leeser stayed on the scene, attending to the injured man until emergency services, which was some distance away, arrived and transported the victim to the hospital. North Carolina Highway Patrol Sergeant Robert Abernathy, who handled the crash, believes Officer Leeser's actions saved the man's life. For his swift, life-saving actions, we would like to present Officer Nathaniel Leeser with the Bronze Medal for Valor. I think a lot of you need vacations from your vacation. You ever stop working? No? Good. From the Prince William County Police Department, Officer Michael Pope, Officer Alexander Cordner, Officer Randy L. Johnston, Officer Stephen A. Weber, Officer Tyron A. Hawkins, Officer Peter F. Inskeep. On the afternoon of July 27, 2017, officers responded to a stabbing at East Longview Drive. Upon arrival, officers found the stabbing suspect still on the scene in a car, the victim lying in the front yard, a fire in the house. Officers Andrew Kohler and Tyron Haskins took the suspect into custody as Officer Johnston went to the stabbing victim to administer first aid and comfort the victim. Meanwhile, smoke billowed from the home where the suspect had started a fire. Officer Michael Pope received information that there might still be 2 children in the house without protective gear. Officer Pope and Officer Alexander Cordner entered the house and went to the basement area where the fire and smoke were most intense. Cordner and Pope fought through smoke and heat to search for the children, continuing until they were almost overcome by smoke. Finding no one, they exited into the backyard. Officers Randy Johnston, Peter Inskeep, Stephen Weber, and Tyron Hawkins, also without protective gear, entered the upper level of the home to check for occupants. Having cleared the upper levels of the home, the officers exited, but Officer Johnston went to the rear of the home, where he re-entered the basement. Still hearing noise coming from the structure and fearing that children might be hiding, he attempted to search before being driven out by the conditions. Due to the prolonged exposure to smoke, Officer Michael Pope and Officer Alexander Cordner were incapacitated and transported by rescue to be treated for significant smoke inhalation. Officer Randy Johnston was treated on scene for smoke inhalation. Officer Stephen Weber was also later treated at the hospital. The tip about the children still being in the home was later found to be false. With selfless devotion to duty, these officers exposed themselves to great peril without protective equipment, provided first aid and comfort to the victim, and took a violent suspect into custody under high-stress conditions. For this, we would like to present Officer Michael Pope, Officer Alexander Cordner, Officer Tyron Hawkins, Officer Stephen Weber, and Officer Randy L. Johnston with the Silver Medal for Valor. To get his daily workout in. As he started to work out, several people came running in, asking if anyone knew CPR. Todd went upstairs and found a man with no pulse lying on the ground and not breathing. Todd started CPR and sent a bystander to get an AED, which he had seen at the gym. Once the AED had been retrieved, Todd utilized another bystander who was trained in CPR to take over compressions. Tech 2 Laws set up the AED, applied it to the patient, and defibrillated the patient one time. Compressions were resumed by a Warrington Town police officer who had arrived to assist. After a short time, compressions were stopped and the patient began breathing on his own. Shortly thereafter, a medic and engine company from Fauquier County arrived on the scene and took over patient care. With Todd continuing to assist, the patient was flown to an appropriate medical facility. And by the time he was loaded into the medic unit, he was conscious and talking to the crews. As far as the crews on the scene know, the 51-year-old patient survived as a result of the CPR initiated and directed by Tech 2 Laws. For his quick thinking and dedication to saving lives, we would like to present Technician 2, Todd Laws, with the Merit Award of Valor. From the Prince William County Department of Fire and Rescue, Technician 1, Marcio Middens. Technician 1, Robert Traver. On October 24th, 2017, recruits Midians and Traver came across an auto accident while traveling to recruit school along a rural stretch of popular road in Stafford County. Both Midians and Traver immediately acted to ensure the safety of the lone occupant who was trapped in their roof-resting vehicle, off the road and in a ditch line severely saturated from recent storms. Midians and Traver sized up the situation, checking for and securing any hazards they could with limited equipment and or PPE. They placed a single flare ahead of the accident scene to warn other vehicles and placed a 911 call to Stafford County and relayed crucial information. Both recruits remained in voice contact with the trapped occupant, gathering patient information and talking calmly to the occupant while waiting for resources to arrive. The eventual extrication of the vehicle occupant was eased by the swift actions of these two recruits. For swift action and possessing limited resources, we would like to present Technician 1, Marcio Midians, and Technician 1, Robert Traver, with the Merit Award for Valor. From the Prince William County Department of Fire and Rescue, Lieutenant Brian Marks, and Technician 2, Jonathan Hartman. On July 27, 2017, Medic 518 responded for an ALS assault. While responding, dispatch comments noted possible fire in the basement. M518 arrived on scene and started treatment for the patient suffering from stab wounds. 3 Prince William County police officers were also injured while attempting to search the house for children. 2 police officers were noted as having an altered level of consciousness and required immediate treatment. M518 split their crew, with each ALS provider taking on a critically ill patient. Lieutenant Marks performed critical interventions resulting in the stabilization of his patient. Simultaneously, Technician 2 Hartman administered oxygen to a police officer who was suffering from smoke inhalation and displaying severe symptoms. Both providers were faced with critically ill patients that were typically treated by 2 advanced life support providers. The operational medical director reviewed the case and stated he had no doubt the crew's quick interventions were essential in the patient's positive outcomes. He described their care as excellent and commended them for their actions on a difficult and dynamic call. For their quick intervention on a difficult call, we would like to present Lieutenant Brian Marks and Technician 2, Jonathan Hartman, with the Merit Award for Valor. All right, your turn to call the next names.
Safety 502, Lieutenant Lee Presgrave. Truck 513, Lieutenant Brian Reeder. Technician 2, Chris Hellaway. Technician 2, Jeff Dowell. Technician 1, Jason Wimmitt. Medic 518, Lieutenant Brian Marks. Technician 2, Jonathan Hartman. Technician 1, Andrew Gorman. Engine 517, Lieutenant Vincent Prysock. Technician 2, Greg Klatt. Technician 1, Matthew Pennington.
Hide behind me. Scoot over. Y'all are the ones getting the awards. All right. On April 13, 2017, Engine 517 and Medic 518 were dispatched to a construction accident with ALS injury in Minnieville Road. According to the report, a construction worker had fallen approximately 10 feet. Engine 517 arrived at the dispatched address, which was a house under construction. On the second floor, they found a construction worker in and out of consciousness. The patient was only responsive to painful stimuli and had a large depressed skull fracture with bleeding. The crew was told that he had hit the back of his head with construction material being moved with a crane and that he had been fallen. The crew of Engine 517 began patient assessment and wound management, attempting to control blood loss. The officer of Engine 517 recognized the complexity of the incident and requested Truck 513, a battalion chief and a safety officer, be dispatched to the scene, as well as a medevac helicopter and an additional engine. Medevac 518 arrived on the scene and began ALS interventions to stabilize the patient. Truck 513 arrived on scene and, with the assistance of Safety 502, set up ringing to remove the patient from the second floor by using a Stokes basket and a construction crane, which was also still on site. Engine 510B then established a landing zone for Helicopter Air Care 1 at Hampton Middle School. Because of the coordination efforts of all units on the scene, the time from patient contact to transport to the landing zone was 27 minutes, resulting in a positive patient outcome. The patient was released from Fairfax Hospital on April 14, 2017, with no neurological or physical defects resulting from the accident. For their coordinated and swift life-saving efforts, we would like to present this Valorous Unit Award. And guess what? The rest of the pages are not for me. Which means thank you very much for being patient with me and for all of your courageous work and dedication on vacations, at the gym, while on call. We appreciate it very much. Glad that I managed to survive this and be here and share these special moments with you. And I'm now going to ask Jim Elliott to return to the podium.
Thank you all very much again, and Julie, thank you so much for stepping up for us. And after your performance today, all I can say is Leon who. So, fantastic. Can I get another round of applause for Julie? To show our appreciation, we have a gift for you, and it is QMT wind chimes. They're made in the United States. They're made in the City of Manassas Park by QMT right here. So thank you so much again. Appreciate everything. And put those out.
When I did read that in the script, I honestly didn't know it was for me, and I was thinking, I love wind chimes. I have a whole bunch of construction going on behind my home right now, and it's driving me crazy, so this will be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I must say, they were very calming, so they'll help you out with that construction quite a bit. So thank you, Julie, very much again. I'd also again like to thank Centera Northern Virginia Medical Center for sponsoring the Valor Awards year after year. Without their support and the support of our other sponsors, this event would not be possible. So let's please give all of our sponsors another round of applause. I'd also like to give a special thanks to our chamber members who make events like this possible. I'd like to thank the Hylton Performing Arts Center for their beautiful venue here tonight. Also like to thank Okras for the delicious food. Of course, Okras from downtown Manassas. Our photographer today was Dawn Gardner from DG Photography. We have Grassroots Communication for printing the commemorative books that you all got to take with you. And East West Embroidery and Design for preparing and creating the awards for us. So let's get a round of applause to all of them as well. And as a reminder, with all the award recipients, please, after the ceremony is over, go upstairs to the Buchanan Partners Art Gallery for some group photos. And one final thought for today, the quality of life here in Prince William region is improved each and every day by our local superheroes, the men and women who serve the police, fire, and rescue workers. We're very thankful to you and the integrity of which you serve. I'd like to ask everyone from various public safety places, please do not applaud. I'd like anyone else, please give a standing ovation for our heroes. Please, thank you. This concludes our program. Thank you all again for coming, and please have a safe drive home. Thank you.